is the hot topic. It is the hot topic right now as companies are really having serious conversations about people coming back to work. Some of our clients have been back to work for a year. Others are just back and forth and back and forth. They just don't know. But it is the hot topic. I want to talk to you guys about it, give you some tips and hints on what you could be doing. Here's the situation. This picture that you're looking at right here is best case scenario. This is the perfect world. If you've got that camera in the room, go get my pen right here. You've got a camera, you've got an image document, you've got a webcam, you've even got the computer over here. Everybody can see everybody. Lucky them, right? But what I'm discovering is lots of companies do not have those options. They have very limited options. We want to talk about how to manage that, because the goal is to keep these meetings productive and successful. And this is the situation, even on our regular meetings, you do have a lot of over talking on virtual, but now that you've got people back in the same room, it's going to really start to happen again. If you've got some folks in a room and you've got some folks virtual, how do you manage it? Usually the rooms that you're in don't have the right kind of tools. If you're lucky and you have the right kind of tools, great. But what we find in most cases is the virtual attendees are left out. So I just like a quick weather check from all of you. What challenges are you facing with hybrid meetings at this moment? And just a little sentence or two about what's going on for you. I'd like to be able to address some of those directly. And while you're doing that, I'll just share with you, we just did a program at a client. They're actually doing training sessions. Some people are face-to-face, some people are online, and they want to be able to keep those folks online active. And we actually physically went there because we were helping them set up the logistics of the, what we call the duct tape technology. And it took us a while to figure it all out. So what do I got in my chat? What do I have in my chat? Laura, what are they saying?
Let's see. Jacqueline says, making sure everyone can hear what's going on. Hard to test everything ahead of time.
It is. We're going to address that.
Yep. Mike says, limited back and forth conversation capability. Melinda, talking over others, not sure when to jump in if the raised hand isn't used. Yep.
Yep.
The Leslie says, side conversations, lack of engagement over the phone. Yep. Jennifer says, time delay between when someone starts talking and the sound of them talking is noticed to those who are on the call. This causes a lot of people to start talking. Yep. Over each other, that over talk. Yep.
Yep. That's exactly right. So here's what I want to do is I'm going to go over some ideas for setup for success. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about content design, because one of the things I see on just virtual meetings, but also the blended meetings, is people are just going into meetings and having meetings. And really, because meetings are much shorter these days, I want to talk about how to have a good kickoff. And then I want to talk about the number one skill you should have to have your best image when you're online communications. It's 30 minutes, it goes very fast. It's a recording session. You will get the recording if you want others to see it. So let's get right into the setup for success. And this is things you should be thinking about before the meeting. The bottom line is you've got to require more time in planning and practice to get the room engaged as well as the virtual people engaged. Here's some things to consider. First of all, I do think it's better to send the agenda and documents with the meeting invitation. You know, have everything in one spot. There should be some written documentation, particularly for those virtual folks. You have to plan to access and share the relevant documents in the online meeting platform. So here's the thing that I'm going to tell you. When you're having these meetings, guess what? You should be running them like online meetings, not face-to-face meetings. So we're going to talk a little bit about everybody should be online. And everybody should be able to have the right to share documents. And I always say block, if it's a really important meeting, I block 30 minutes, but if it's just a regular meeting that you're going into, about 15 minutes before your calendar to get things set up, particularly if you're in the face-to-face room. So I'd like to kind of know now, what's your typical setup? And you're going to go and chat and do this. We're not going to do a poll. Meeting room with speakerphone and projection unit. Meeting room is completely set up for hybrid or something in between. So what do you have? What do you have? What do I have over there in my chat?
We have a couple C's, one B. So completely set up or something in between.
Yeah, okay. So here are the parameters. One, just like in your comments, everybody needs to be seen. So there needs to be an ability for everybody to be seen. We're going to talk about that. Everybody needs to be heard and everybody needs to be able to hear well. Everyone needs to be able to share a document if they need to. The people in the main room as well as the people in virtual. And then you need to come up with an idea to simplify the process for your particular setup in your particular offices. So as I indicated, this is the same picture as before. You see the thumbs up. If you've got that webcam in the room, look, they've got a couple of webcams in the room. And the other room has a webcam in the room, so everybody can see everybody. Good for you. Most companies pre-COVID had maybe a couple of rooms like this. If you're at a smaller organization, you don't have this set up. This is lovely, but this is not the norm. It probably will be the norm a couple of years from now, but at the moment, most people are walking into rooms that do not have that technology. So first of all, assess your technology. There needs to be a better way to put the content together. And how are you going to engage people? So this is the typical room. So I'd like everybody to go to their reactions buttons. Rachel, Laura, tell them where they are.
Sure. So if you take your mouse to the bottom of your screen, you'll see that tray of icons pop up. You'll want to go all the way down almost to the end. You'll see reactions. There's a little smiley face.
Yep. So here's what I want you to do. How many of you have this set up? There's a speakerphone in the room, you have a projection unit on the ceiling, and you've got a screen in front. And that's pretty much the rooms you're meeting. How many of you say thumbs up, or a green check or red X? Most people have that. That's right. I've got like 2/3 of you saying thumbs up. Got it.
Yeah.
So here, yeah. So this is what we want to do. We want to give you steps for that. So this is my duct tape approach, I'm calling it, to being able to run a decent meeting. First of all, rule number one, everybody in the meeting that you see them face to face right here, they all have laptops. I want everybody bringing their laptops to the meeting. Okay. The audio, this is the tricky one. Well, some of the speaker phones are pretty good, particularly if you've got 4 or 5 people, you could use a speakerphone. Although there tends to be a lot of echo on speaker phones. But if you've got more than what you've got right here, this setup here, what I'm going to recommend is this. The people in the face-to-face room dial in on their phone. So when you join the meeting, you mute the audio on the computer and you actually dial in on your phone. You dial in on your phone, okay? And ideally, you have some type of an ear pod. Now, I have a wired into my computer right now because I'm on VoIP, but what I typically do is I'll have on the phone and then I'll have one earbud in, okay? And the reason for that is we want to have minimal issues with the audio, minimal issues. And when people are in the main room and they want to speak, I want people going on webcam. But where's the webcam? You're looking into your computer, okay? You're looking into your computer as if you're talking to the person that's virtual, and you're unmuting your phone. Now, this may seem like, what is she talking about? Remember, I said it's the duct tape approach. It's the approach that I have found that's been the most consistent with the least amount of audio issues. When you're speaking to the virtual attendee, the perfect world is you're talking to your computer where your webcam is, you're going on webcam and the virtual attendees can see you. And in fact, a couple of the people in the room would be looking into the webcam so everyone can see each other, as if you're running a virtual meeting. Okay? If you're speaking to the person in the room, then of course, you're going to look over at that person. Now, not the perfect setup. Remember, I'm not trying to, we know it's the duct tape approach. One other thing you could do that does make it a little bit nicer from a video perspective, we kind of a screenshot of this little phone with the tripod. I actually would move this image, assuming, let me go get my pen for a second. Okay, so if the world were perfect, I would have had a picture with the table that's out here a little bit. And then I would have put my camera back here so that my camera on a tripod could see everybody in the room. All right, then we would use this camera for the virtual folks so that they could at least see everybody in the room. Now, again, not perfect, but we're trying to get over this hump of not having the camera. It would be really nice if that camera were up here. Actually, the camera's usually up right there. So then everybody can see everybody, but we don't have that. So these are options for you. I still like having everybody on their laptops, because why? Because if this guy right here wants to share a document, he can. And then of course the virtual people can share. But then if somebody else over here wants to share a document, they can. Okay, and remember, we're all on our phones, So if we unmute, they can hear us really well. There's not an echo. There's none of these issues. The deal is, though, you've got to remember to unmute and mute on your phone. And while that can get a little clunky at times, it works. How do I know it works? Because I've been going out to our clients, and actually we've been playing around with this whole process. And we found that this was the least cumbersome and the best audio. Are there any questions about that? Please go into the chat and say, wait, what did you do? Or remember, you're going to get this as a recording afterwards too. Laura, do I have anything in my chat?
No, you do not.
Okay. So what do you think? Would it work for you? I'm going to have some open discussion here in a minute. I'm actually going to stop sharing here in just a second. I didn't want to go there. I'm going to close that. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go on webcam. For those of you that would be willing to go on webcam, if you don't mind going on webcam. Andy was my first person on webcam. I like Greg Scott's picture there. It's very distinguished and very smart. Oh, and there he is. And there he is. He's got his hand. Hi, Greg.
That was not on purpose.
Well, that's okay. Since you unmuted, Greg, tell me about the hybrid scenarios that you're doing, and what do you think about my suggestion? Because it is a little hodgepodgey, right?
I noted that it was a little hodgepodgey, and I like that you're calling out that it's the duct tape approach, and so I'm okay with that. I think that might work for us. What it will entail is a lot of very detailed instructions, and the bigger your meeting, the more you're going to have to make sure everyone's on the same page, because some people, if they join late, or some people, if it's not what they're used to doing, they may do something else. So you're going to have to train folks to do that. And
yes,
yeah,
I think, and so we thought about that as well. One of the biggest things, everybody brings their phone with them to a meeting. Okay, so we don't have to tell them to bring their phone. Not everybody brings their earbuds, but you could live without the earbuds because they could just talk on your phone when it's their turn to talk. But the biggest thing is bring your laptop to the meeting. That's the biggest thing. So I don't think you want to make it overly sophisticated. I think you say, bring your laptop to the meeting. We will all be joining a virtual meeting when we get into the room. And then once you get into the room, you say, join the meeting, mute the VoIP, call in on the phone, and give the instructions once they get to the room. Because you're absolutely right. It gets too convoluted if they think otherwise. The only thing is that people will figure out is that meeting number one, if they didn't bring their earbuds or whatever it is that they have, they'll know to do it next time to like bring us. Now, most of us travel with these things in our pockets or purses. Yeah. Any other comments? Hey, Roberta, I see you on, Roberta. Just a quick comment from you. Thoughts on my duct tape approach?
Yeah, I think that's probably an idea. I think the next step is getting folks to see that as an idea, because I know I suggested something similar on an upcoming meeting and I got told, no, we don't trust people not to play on their laptops.
Yeah, I mean, again, there goes to the whole respect and trust issue, but that's a separate issue, right? But what I will say to you is this, the speaker phones can sometimes work. Here's what we struggled with when we played around with this with our client who's doing a training session. We started with the speaker phone. We thought, okay, that's going to be the easiest. You know why it wasn't? Because of the muting on and off of the speaker phone in the front, like people just weren't used to doing it in there. And so there was a lot of over talking. There was a lot of mishaps with not muting it and unmuting it. It was very clunky to have the speaker phone, believe it or not. So we discovered that the room was more likely to use their phones and it worked better with the phones. Now, again, this was a training team. It was trying to do it the smoothest way they could with people that new people every single time they do training. Okay, so it's not like the same team meeting over and over. They were always having new people coming in. So we played around with it. That's what we discovered. Greg, I see, do you have a hand up, Greg?
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Roberta. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We had some similar concerns with people playing on their phones. Here's the reality. People play on their phones anyway. We just pretend not to notice and or their computers. And I was getting ready to put something in the chat. I just hadn't hit send yet. I like the idea of having them use their phone and their laptops for the meeting, because that means they're less likely to be on it for the other stuff, or at least they'll be quote unquote multitasking less.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say to you too is in these meetings, don't have just one person that's sharing documents. Make sure that in the meeting you say, okay, Andy, you're going to talk about this. You be prepared. Leslie, you're going to be prepared for this. Kim, you're going to take this. So have different people be responsible for sharing documentation, some of them virtual and some of them face-to-face. So again, that keeps them just a little bit sharper because they know they have to speak and get involved. So that was the other thing that we discovered. Now for that training group, that was not going to be the case because of course they were trainers onboarding new hires. Some new hires were in the room, some new hires were on the phone. So they didn't have that luxury, but we discussed, boy, that would be, if you're meeting just with your team, pushing out those responsibilities to others instead of having one person running the meeting like a traditional meeting.
We have one question in the chat.
Yes.
From Jacqueline, she asks, do you have a set of instructions you send out to participants ahead of time?
I'm sure we do. So would you make a note of that, Laura? And let's get that together. And again, that's just for the duct tape approach when using the phones. Okay, so, and I do like that a lot. I like to have printed handouts for that instruction because if people come to the face-to-face meeting, you're right, they're not always paying attention, Roberta. So if they can have like, do this, do this, do this when you speak, I think that's helpful. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my screen share, back to my presentation. Where are we at there? So let's talk about during the meeting. I've pretty much hit most of these things. I like people being responsible for sharing documents. We're going to go over the 60-second kickoff, level set a meeting. I'm very big into the repeat situation when you've got people face-to-face and people virtual. So I do like things in writing. I also like things being shown on the screen. It's one thing to hear, it's another thing to hear and see. So either putting a quick PowerPoint, nothing fancy, of here's what we're going to be doing today is a really good approach. Encourage the use of chat. Like I just did in this session, although it takes up time, stop sharing, go on webcam, just periodically be doing that on a regular basis, unbeknownst to, you don't sit there and tell them, okay, we're going to have 3 call outs. You just randomly do it so that, again, people have to stay sharp. I want to go over what I'm seeing as one of the biggest mishaps for these virtual meetings, and that is people are not doing a good enough job of setting the scene of what this meeting is about. If you're someone like myself, most executives are, I literally some days go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And I call this the introduction, the level set. The body of the talk, the conclusion, the next steps. This is our craft compelling content. We're not going to go over that today, but we are going to go over that 60-second kickoff. And here it is, not super sophisticated. First element, once you've said your hellos and you've talked about the weather and so forth, as we are today, you state, and I like it in writing. So either it's an agenda, it's a PDF you're showing, and or a slide. What is the goal of the session? What is the current status? In other words, what's our problem we're dealing with, our challenge? And then today we're going to cover two things, and just getting people's heads into the right frame of mind. So let's take a look, and you're going to deliver that in 60 seconds. So the first statement, when I say a goal statement, it's really just one statement that says, what's most important to all of you today is we are going to talk about blah, 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 and the value to you is this. Now, the current situation is either stating the pain related to that topic. It could be a hurdle that the group or someone is dealing with. It may not be a problem. It may just be the current status. If it's a project update, where we're at today, the current environment. And then you say, I have pictures of silos because I see agenda topics as topics that you say, okay, first we're going to talk about this topic and all the information that should go in that silo. Second topic, third topic. Getting people's heads into it. Now, when we actually do this on slide with the agenda topics, I'm a really big fan of at the top, say, what if it's agenda topic 1, we're going to talk about the ABC project, that at the top of every slide it says ABC project, because to Roberta's point, people are going off and they're coming back, and they're going off and they're coming back. So doing a better job visually representing what are we talking about here. So the biggest mistake I've seen in virtual is people try to treat it like it was face-to-face, and they're just talking, and they're not factoring in that 50% attention factor. So I'm always very big on virtual. Things need to be visual as well as verbal. So just to review, what was our goal, current situation, agenda? We talked about having focused, productive, successful hybrid meetings. The situation is we lack tools, lack prep. So today we're going to talk about setup, create the content, and we're about to move to the #1 skill to improve your professional presence. So I want you to just answer this. I'm looking at my time. I want to make sure I finish on time. So what do you think, can you use this kickoff? It's so simple. I love it because many times if you don't have time to prepare something, you can just do it off the cuff. So go ahead and make those in the chat. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to come back to what you're saying in the chat. The #1 skill to improve professional presence online. I'm actually going to hold off on that skill, so I want to go back to the chat first. Laura, do I have anything in the chat about how people feel about that kickoff session process? I'm sorry.
Yep, Greg says that yes, he can use it. Jennifer says definitely, I've used this and it's very beneficial. And Roberta says yes, it's good to use level sets.
I mean, every meeting that I have with my team now, we just talk like that. Because again, particularly when it's me, because even if, by the way, even if I talked to them about this topic last week, I say to them, guys, I've had 20 meetings unrelated to that topic. Candidly, I don't know if it's my age or whatever. I said, you need to get my head back into it. Like, yeah, I remember we had the conversation, but what was that about? And so you can't believe how many times they'll say, Sherry, we're meeting at 11 o'clock tomorrow. These were the things we talked about last week, like 4 things. And then we get on the meeting and go, okay, this is what I need from you. Like, it's just so helpful for me, like gets me right there instead of having to go, what's that about again? And what? Okay. Laura, guide them to where the drawing tools are. If you're not familiar with Zoom, I don't want to insult people. I know a lot of us have been using Zoom, but some people just use Teams all the time. So I'm going to have you draw something here in a minute. So Laura, tell them how to get the pen.
Sure. So you're going to take your mouse to the top of the screen. You'll click on View Options. It's right next to that green bar. Slide on down to where it says Annotate, and this will call up your annotation toolbar. You'll want to now select the third icon that says Draw. You can, the freeform draw is one of those two squiggly lines, and you will use that on the next slide. I also want to remind people that you do have to be on the Zoom app versus the desktop version.
Okay, so there's a lot of important skills from an image perspective: the tone of your voice. Are you having good eye contact into the webcam? Can we see your body? Squaring up, sitting tall. Are you hanging around like this? And pause and breathe. I want you to circle the one you think is the most important for online. Circle the one. Okay, anybody else want to be their pet? There we go, there we go. Wow, the popular vote is vocal variety. So we know that it's going to be a combination of all of these things for sure. Vocal variety seems the most obvious, but Greg, I think it's Greg Smith that put his green circle there. Was it you, Greg? Can you unmute real quick?
Maybe. Yes. Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
And also, I think Melinda in the chat also said pause and breathe.
It's the winner. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those annotation tools for everybody. Thank you, Laura. It's pause and breathe. Now, not say that vocal variety is important. The one that separates people is pausing at the end of a sentence, pausing at the end of a key point. When you change the slides, we already had some conversation earlier about the lag. Everybody, it's shocking, but lots of people are still struggling with their internets at their homes. So you got to give that 2-second pause. The other thing is that we're not getting the visual feedback from people. When we're face to face with them, like we would be in a hybrid meeting, we know to slow down or speed up. We can see that. We don't know on virtual as much, even though we can see them on webcam. It's not the same. So incorporating the pause, I did not say slow down. I said incorporating the pause to keep people more present is actually the most important skill. I always say pausing is power. Guys, it's only 30 minutes. We talked about setup for success for hybrids. It's the duct tape approach. We're going to send out a process of things that you would tell the participants. We talked about the 2-minute kickoff. We talked about the #1 skill, which is pause and breathe. Obviously, we can help you with that. We have our web meetings that wow, team collaborations, advanced skills, talking about how to run these hybrid meetings, talking about we're actually giving you personalized coaching on your delivery. We're giving you personalized coaching. Everybody gets coached on their content. So it's much more hands-on. It can be anywhere from 90 minutes, 2 to 3 hour sessions. We have 1 to 4 consultants we put on these things. It can be very, very hands-on, or it can just be high-level educational, which that's what this was for 30 minutes. We also have a public program. There's one coming up in November 2 and 10. It's going to be 3 hours each time. And everybody gets coached on content. Everybody gets coached on delivery. We only put 8 people in that class. It's a very cool class. You also get access to our Empower educational portal, which is our online library resource. And you get access to our 2 weeks of our Power Presenter software, which evaluates your communication style online and scores you. Very, very slick tool. So with that said, in the chat right now, you can access the articles and infographic for the hybrid meeting. And you can also get the white paper for the duct tape approach. Oh, excuse me, that's the audio, not the white paper. All right, guys, thank you very much. It's always very nice to see past clients and some new folks. We'd love to work with you. Let us know how we can help. Take care.